Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this June Cabinet meeting. I'm Councillor Milliel, the leader of the Council, and I'll be chairing this today. Just to say we have some fans in the room because it is very warm, and we're just checking to see if everyone can hear us online. So hopefully it won't cause too much interference throughout the meeting. I'd like to welcome members of the public and press who have given up their time to be here, and of course to officers, cabinet members and councillors who are in the room, and any that join online. I'm going to hand over to Sarah, who is our Democratic Services Clerk, to go over the housekeeping for today's meeting. Sarah.
Thank you. Please note that this meeting is being recorded by the Council for live broadcast and will be published on the Council website for a minimum of 6 months. The meeting may also be recorded or streamed for live or subsequent broadcast by members of the public, although ultimate discretion in this matter lies with the Chair in case of disruption. For those in the room, please note that if the fire alarm sounds, please exit the building by way of the nearest available signed fire exit route and make your way to the assembly point at the War Memorial in the gardens opposite the front of this building. Finally, please ensure background noise is kept to a minimum and mobile phones and other devices are turned off or switched to silent for the duration of the meeting. For those in the room, this includes turning off microphones and turning the volume down completely on your laptops. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, we will move to agenda item 1, which is apologies. Today we've had apologies from Councillor Andy Hadley and Councillor Andy Martin. We'll move to agenda item 2, which is declarations of interest. I haven't received any from any cabinet members, but if any do come up throughout the meeting, please do let us know. And on to agenda item 3, which is confirmation of the minutes of the meeting, which was held on the 27th of May. Can I have a proposer and a seconder for those minutes, please?
Can I propose that we accept the minutes? Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. And someone to second?
Thank you, Leader. I can second those.
Thank you very much, Councillor Burton. Is there agreement that everything is fine with those minutes, please? Yeah, that's unanimous. Right, so on to agenda item 4, which is public issues. We haven't had any petitions or questions submitted on this occasion. However, we have had one public statement, which has been received from Philip Gattrell, which relates to agenda item 6 to 8, which is the financial outturn for 25-26 and the medium-term financial plan update and also corporate performance report. Mr. Gattrell is not present today, so I'm going to ask Sarah from Democratic Services to read his statement, please.
Thank you. Public statement from Philip Gattrell. The multi-dimensional reports and projections today underscore the cost of local authority operations in a harsh economic environment and the impact on our community. For example, the cost of improving previously failing children's services requires significantly increased expenditure, which more recently has yielded an Ofsted Good Provider rating. It is timely, therefore, to acknowledge Cathy Hadley's positive input as a troubleshooting service director in that role. All will wish Miss Hadley well for the future when moving from the council. Her successor in the currently advertised opportunity will doubtless continue the good work. An objective analysis of multifarious components comprising the financial data highlights the broader scope of challenges, including capital investment constraints. The liquidity test would not be overlooked where the council's draft 2025-26 accounts show worsening year-end net overdrawn bank and cash balances of £5,537,000 after £5 million short-term investments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah, and thank you to Mr. Gattrell for that statement. So agenda item 5 is recommendations from overview and scrutiny committees that are not otherwise included on the agenda. Can I ask those respective chairs if we have any to report? Councillor Carl Brown, Chair of Children's Services Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Please do bring us your recommendation.
Thank you, Chair. I was almost too keen then, wasn't I? I think it must be the heat, and that's the last time I'm going to use that as an excuse. So, yes, we met last week, and I believe on your papers you only have one, but I'm just going to talk around a little bit. I won't take up too much time, don't worry. So it was around, we had a youth strategy update, and we had a report on what is happening in BCP, and we noted as a committee how that aligns very strongly with the priorities set out in the national youth strategy. And it's worth noting that although that policy, the national policy, is not yet fully fleshed out, it is actually the first youth strategy in over 20 years. And so that is a point to be celebrated. And we are getting our first youth hub next year as well. So it's good to see that there is a lot we can be doing locally and to support our children and young people, and be ready to fully take on whatever, when that policy is fully fleshed out and whatever that says. And so it's not ready for Cabinet yet as a policy itself, and no doubt you'll see me again when it is, and we will obviously be keeping a close eye on it. However, the recommendation that came from it is something that I must admit I've sort of banged on about for about a year, and it was formally agreed to bring a proposal to Cabinet that a requirement be included in the summary of implications section of all council reports to consider the impact of any policy on our children and young people. You could say it's within the equalities part. However, given the importance of our future generations, I simply think it should be its own, or the committee thinks it should be its own section, so that the effect, as I say, of any policy is fully understood for its ramifications on our children and young people. And we believe that this will weave the interests of children and young people into everything we do. So that was and the other thing that we did discuss, which is coming in July, which I was just going to outline very quickly here because it's important, and just in case I can't make July's Cabinet, is the Youth Justice Report that we had, and it was simply to endorse that report, and also the excellent work of David Webb and his team. And that very much works to the same principles of the youth strategy and the hubs, which is around prevention, early intervention, parental responsibility, and the state as an enabler of those. And on the prevention side, I just wanted to highlight that speech and language therapy was identified as a key area and one in need of ongoing financial support and certainty. And it was noted that many needs are not recognised until young people enter the youth justice system, which I think we can all agree is too late. And work is being undertaken to better understand the scale of need. But we also need to raise awareness across schools and services to support earlier intervention. And I'm confident that that will be being done, and we were also told that this will be picked up through the schools forum in order to promote this. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carr-Brown. And on the youth justice recommendation, we'll take that and consider it when we consider the paper next month. And on including children and young people within our qualities impact assessments, I think that's a really good idea. I think Cabinet will discuss that and then feed back to Children's Overview and Scrutiny Committee to confirm whether we want to adopt that recommendation. So thank you. I can't see any other indications from chairs of scrutiny boards. Oh, Councillor Burton, did you want to speak on those?
I mean, if you wouldn't mind, because I can do a little bit of updating on that, because yeah, the second bit, the youth justice plan, yes, that we'll deal with that when it comes to the first bit about the children's being mentioned on reports. It's something which I have been supporting because I totally agree. You know, as you know, everybody who sits in committees are adults. We tend to get a lot of adults talking to us. It's, you know, but we need to remember children are also our constituents, and we need to cover them in our thoughts. There has been some work done on this, and I believe it's about ready to actually be added on to reports, because my director has been working on it only the last few days. So hopefully something will happen on that very soon.
Brilliant, thank you, Councillor Burton. Okay, so we'll move on to agenda item 6, which is the financial outturn for the 2025-26 financial year. Councillor Cox is going to be presenting and proposing the item. Is there someone to second that one, please?
Yes, Chair, happy to second that.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Over to you.
Thank you, Leader. This report really makes pretty grim reading. It presents the revenue and capital budget outturn, reserves position and dedicated schools grant outturn, housing revenue account and the results for the council companies and partner organisations for the financial year 25-26. The 25-26 general fund revenue outturn is £4.6 million. Is in line with the Q3 forecast and confirms that the demand-led social services remain the council's most significant financial challenge. This is particularly within the children's services, which
We're just going to take a moment because we're having a few technical issues, possibly caused by the heat that we've got here. Is that coming through to you, Patrick, when I speak?
No, the speech is just breaking up.
Still breaking up. So shall we? Okay. Should we have
Just try it. Can Mike just try once more?
okay, this report makes pretty grim reading. Okay, right. So I'll start again with the outturn report. So as I said, third time, this report makes pretty grim reading. It presents the revenue and capital budget outturn, reserves position, dedicated schools grant outturn, the housing revenue account and the results of the council's companies and partner organisations for the financial year 25-26. The 25-26 general fund revenue outturn of £4.6 million overspend is in line with the Q3 forecast and confirms that the demand-led social care services remain the council's most significant financial challenge. This is particularly within the children's services, which overall has overspent by £9.1 million, being 9% of the council's budget. The planned investment and mitigation for 26-27 will be critical to improving resilience and bringing these pressures under control. Overspends in daycare packages and lower than expected parking revenue have added to the problems in adult social care and operations. Pressures across the main service areas are partly offset by overspends in resources and corporate budgets. Included in the budgets are itemised savings of £9.6 million, of which 90% were achieved through service transformation, third-party spend reductions, staff savings and raising additional revenue. The transformation programmes over the last 6 years have been crucial in reducing the annual outgoing expenditure, with cumulative revenue savings of £56 million over this period, with one-off investments of £45 million to date. These savings are of course ongoing, but the transformation needs to go harder and faster if we are to keep up with the rising demands for statutory services. The accumulated deficit of £180 million for the dedicated schools grant, as at the 31st of March 26, remains a significant threat to the council's financial stability. expenditure will continue to outstrip by an estimated further £200 million for the next 2 financial years. The required SEND reform plan has been developed and indeed submitted, and if approved, central government could provide an estimated 90% contribution towards that deficit. This would still leave the council with an estimated residual debt to fund of £38 million. The deterioration in departmental overspends in Q4 is very alarming, not least for what is happening in Q1 of this year and beyond. We have set in place measures such as spending freezes and departmental star chambers to examine line by line what could be considered excess expenditure or increased revenue opportunities. This really exposes all too vividly the crisis in basic council funding, which will be made worse by the current government stripping £15 million of funding from BCP every year. I have to say there is a certain irony of current Labour MPs campaigning to save non-statutory services like lollipop services and libraries when they've just voted to cut our revenue.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. I am going to ask if there are any councillors who wish to speak on this item who are not on Cabinet. Can't see any indication. So, Cabinet members, anything you wish to say? Go on then, David.
I feel I should say something as portfolio holder for health and wellbeing, incorporating adult social care, where obviously, as we've noted in the financial outturn, there's been an overspend within adult social care. Now, we did cover this at last week's overview and scrutiny board. There was quite a bit of debate about the financial outturn, and a few of us were in attendance, and I spoke a bit on the pressures within adult social care. I think it needs to be noted that it is the first year that adult social care actually haven't been able to sort of deliver within budget, and primarily that is due to there's a 6.5% higher demand than budgeted for the care home budget for adults aged 65 plus, and if you've got more people presenting that actually have care and support needs, and just to explain to people listening in, it's not a case of we can say, well, we haven't got the money, we can't spend it. Under the Care Act, we have a statutory duty to provide the care and support that people are assessed to need, and we can't say no. We can work to make sure that the package is most appropriate to their needs and most affordable for the council to deliver, and to do these things in the most efficient ways, and to work closely with our care providers, whether that be residential care homes, nursing homes, whether that be home care providers, or whoever that we work with, and we have large contracts with providers, and which we manage really closely, and we work really well to have sort of framework provision so that we can actually do that in the most efficient way. But if we've got more people in our communities who are needing that care and support, we have to, by law, assess their needs, and actually, following a financial assessment, if we have to provide that, we have to provide that. So it's not, when we talk about demand-led services, and if people criticise the council for sort of overspending, well, that the law's the law, and we have to deliver those services. And it's really important, actually, because they can be really beneficial to help people live a fulfilled life, and they can be really life-changing in a lot of circumstances. So it's not just a case of we're spending too much money, we're actually supporting more and more people in our communities. And I think there's over 3,000 people actually receiving care and support provision within adult social care services. So it's really important to note that each and every one of those is having their lives, and they're benefited by the services that we're providing with these funds, and that's not to take away the fact that we have to work more and more to deliver these services within the sort of budgets allocated. But there are all sorts of reasons, and we're not the only local authority suffering this. I've spoken to colleagues across the southwest who are reporting very much the same, that actually this is, for other authorities in the southwest, it is the first year they've ever overspent on their adult social care budget, and it feels like there's a bit of a systemic shift in demand for adult social care services in BCP in the southwest, and probably nationally. So we are working hard. We are delivering I would be quite worried about it if we didn't have the strategies in place that actually Cabinet colleagues have supported over the recent years. Our Adult Social Care Fulfilled Lives Transformation Programme, our Future Care Programme that we've worked with our NHS colleagues on, and most recently our Adult Social Care Prevention Strategy. If we didn't have any of those strategies in place and actually working their way through and being delivered to actually deliver efficient social care services, then I would be quite concerned. But I know that at the moment we are doing well. Strategically, we are delivering everything we need to actually keep a cap on the cost of these services and actually reduce the need, people's need for these sorts of care and support services, to actually keep them at home living independently with support from friends and families and stronger local communities. So we have a lot of strategic plans in place which are working their way through, which Cabinet have agreed to fund over the last year or two, and which are sort of helping us to manage these pressures. But there are occasions when, you know, the number of people presenting that need care and support from the local authority, you know, is rising inexorably. So we have to deliver those services. So yeah, I just wanted to sort of add that. And we had quite a good debate at the Overview and Scrutiny Board. There were quite a few questions there. So.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brown. Councillor Burton.
Yeah, so likewise, I feel I ought to say something because with children's services, and of course we've got two strands in children's services. If I sort of deal with them slightly separately, the SEND strand, as Councillor Cox mentioned, you know, our plan has now been sent into government last week. Doing what all local authorities are doing, because you'll find around the country it's a common problem with the SEND service. It is costing a lot of money. We're spending more money on SEND than the government has given us historically, and I say it's a national issue, not a local issue. And we've discussed this and debated this many times. One thing I would emphasise though is that I know this paper we're focusing on the finance bit of SEND. Our plan does focus on the quality of what what our children and young people will get, trying to get the investment into earlier, so we get a better service, which will save money. We will get less EHCPs, but not straight away. You know, the number of EHCPs within BCP is still, you know, we'll still see them going up until these reforms actually start to take effect. So I don't want to just focus on the financial bit of the SEND reforms, because that actually isn't the most important. Coming back to the other thing, which is the most important, you know, children in care. As a service, and it was mentioned early on in this meeting, you know, we've now got a service which is recognised as being good. We're still having to spend money on the effect of when it wasn't so good. Children going into care, I think we as a local authority are demonstrating that our, we did say this when we actually took control of the local authority. We're focusing on the vulnerable and the people who need that. I think, you know, this overspend shows that we're willing to do that. If a child needs to come into care, you can't say we can't afford to. You need to do what the best thing for the child. Now, at this meeting, you did support us investing in an external organisation coming to do some work to look in that. We do know that Ofsted have said that the right number of children are going into care for us, that they've looked at our decisions and say that they're good ones, otherwise we wouldn't have got good. So yes, the overspend does concern me, but I am reassured that we are doing work to get both overspends down, and the most important thing is to keep a good or improve on the service, which will also take the spending down.
Thank you, Councillor Burton. Any other? Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Leader. Could I thank Councillor Cox for his introduction to the report, and I did note his little comment at the end, which suggested that some of the issues that we're facing are to do with government policy, and he said that specifically in the context of a revenue cut of £15 million, which is quite a pressure. And there's also been the reference to the fact that government policy has been to fund only 90% of the SEND deficit, and to leave us to fund £38 million worth of that. Could I add to that another budget pressure, which I'm not sure has been identified in the report, but it's the interest on the SEND deficit, where it's government policy that interest cannot be rolled up within the deficit, and that we are having to meet it. And I may be wrong, but I think that has now reached something of the order of £11 million a year. So all of those together create quite a pressure on this council, due entirely to government policy. I suspect that other people have noticed that there is about to be a change in government. And we're going to have a new Prime Minister, and we're also likely to have new ministers in various different departments. I may be wrong, but I suspect that the new Prime Minister is likely to be one Andy Burnham, who has been rather closer to local government for the past few years than the outgoing Prime Minister has been. So there may actually be more understanding coming from the new government of the pressures that there are on local councils. And I wonder if it might be appropriate for us to consider making further representations about those particular pressures on our budget caused by government policy, to see whether those might be mitigated by changes in government policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hannah, and I've been feeling very much the same. I think that from that national change in direction, and hopefully seeing an emphasis on localism and devolution, we should be asking very strongly to have that £15 million cut in our revenue grant reinstated, and hopefully we can get the support of perhaps our local MPs, although they did vote for that cut in the first place. So I'm not sure how successful we will be there. But it certainly feels like there's some opportunity. I'm going to hand over to Councillor Cox to sum up.
Really, thank you very much. Thank you very much for all the comments. I have to pick up on something actually Mr. Gattrell said in his statement, and he said this is part of the cost of us improving our services, the overspends, which I thought was very very good of him to point that out, and I think that's absolutely right. Even as Councillor Brown said, even in Dorset, they have overspent on their critical children's and adult social care budgets in a similar line than we have, and we are no different from any other councils in respect of that. I welcome Councillor Hannah's comment about the changing government or the changing government emphasis. I have to say, as a fellow Northerner to the prospective new Prime Minister, I tend to think he's probably very Northern centric, and therefore a town on the south coast is probably not on his list of priorities. But I certainly welcome the fact that we need to lobby to get that change done. And so with that, I really would like to recommend to Cabinet that we note the financial outturn for 25-26. We agree the general fund capital requirements set out in the paragraph 2 of Appendix C1, and agree the acceptance of the capital grant for the HRA as set out in paragraph 20 of Appendix D.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Those in favour of those recommendations as set out by Councillor Cox? Thank you, that's unanimous. Okay, so we'll move on to agenda item 7, which is the medium-term financial plan update. Councillor Cox, you're going to be presenting this one. Is there someone to second it, please?
Happy to second that, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Leader. The Council's medium-term financial position remains under significant pressure. The latest update, as set out in Appendix 1, shows a more uncertain outlook driven by rising demand, inflation, borrowing costs, and continued volatility in national funding and pay assumptions. The risks associated with the dedicated schools grant has lessened thanks to the confirmation of the government to support 90% of the accumulated deficit, but there remains significant uncertainty over the timing of the grant payments and how the council will fund the remaining 10% from asset disposals. This continues to present a material threat to the long-term financial sustainability of the council. Elsewhere in the Cabinet agenda for the outturn for 25-26, as we've already discussed, we recorded a £4.6 million overspend, the first overspend that this council has reported. This is almost entirely driven by the demand-led pressures, as we've just discussed in adults and children's services, and underlines the limited resilience in the base budget. The update also provides the poor condition of the council's assets, which is becoming an increasing risk following sustained underinvestment over many years in repairs and maintenance. And this, our new approach, has been very much welcomed by overview and scrutiny the other week. Appendix 1 set out the initial steps to remedy this. The updated MTFP position overall is 31.9 million gap, with a deficit of 8.3 million in 27-28. The report recognises the need to develop long-term view of savings and efficiencies. The council needs to make, which are considered and planned for the long term to bring financial sustainability. For 27-28, the budget, the council will adopt a more strategic programme-led approach through the Continuous Improvement and Innovation Programme. This represents a shift from the short-term saving measures to a structured pipeline of transformation, service redesign and efficiency activity. The financial strategy is set out in Appendix 3 with the detailed timeline set out in Appendix 2.6. Overall, the financial outlook remains highly sensitive to relatively small changes in assumptions. Further savings options, therefore, are being developed as a precaution, alongside continued close monitoring of the major risks. The direction of travel is very clear. The council will continue to plan cautiously, manage spending tightly, and prepare early for further decisions as the position develops. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Are there any councillors wishing to speak on this item who are not on Cabinet? Can't see any indications. Over to Cabinet. Councillor Burton?
Yeah, and just following on from the conversation that we had before, I'd just like to bring to everybody's attention that the SEND reform paper got sent to government on time. I would like to actually thank the officers in children's services and particularly the education area, because it was a huge amount of work. They, I and they know that we have to get it right, because to get that 90% paid off, it's got to be a plan which is agreed. Now, all the feedback we've had so far from the advisors in the DFE says that our plan is looking like it's a really good plan. You know, I have heard it been said it is one of the best that have been seen. However, we know that if we're going to get this 90% in the autumn, and we don't know the actual date that will be, but if we're going to get the 90% in the autumn, it's got to go through first time. If the government aren't happy with it for whatever reason, we get a second go, but that will delay it until the spring, and having to pay the interest on that money for another couple of months will actually add a huge amount of extra pressure. Therefore, I know we've made that a priority to get that plan, a good plan, in on time, and let's hope it works.
Thank you, Councillor Burton. Any other councillors wishing to speak? Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, I just want to kind of echo some of what Mike said around the condition of council assets, and I think it's really a shame that we haven't invested in such a long time. I mean, ages and ages, and our predecessor councils as well. But it's really good to see that the going forward, some of the things that we're going to be doing to try and resettle the balance in terms of prioritising expenditure on assets that need immediate refurbishment and those that are in significant risk. But yeah, I think this is like an area that I think we as a cabinet should really be looking at as well ourselves, and really making sure that work does get done. So yeah, really good that that's in the report.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Brown.
Yeah, just a couple of brief comments, just to follow on from what Councillor Wilson said there about the condition of council assets, and I think I've been talking about our sort of property assets and investing in the maintenance of them and actually making sweating those assets and making the most of them, and I think if I reflect back on the last 3 years, that of our administration, that actually we started off very much by really having to get control of our financial resources, because we were in a sort of structural deficit position where the previous administration was overspending the money that was coming into the council. So we dealt with the sort of financial resources of the council to get a real grip on those and get those under control and avoid sort of bankruptcy. We've subsequently worked really hard to work through this in terms of the people resources and our pay and reward programme, and now I think actually focusing very much on our sort of property assets is a really important area for us to make sure that that we are doing those condition surveys, that we are investing appropriately where it's really important for service provision. So actually trying to rectify many years of underinvestment in our council assets is a really sort of critical thing as far as I'm concerned. And just a small second point, I think we get these reports sort of year after year to help our medium-term financial planning, but I'd just like to note a little bit, because they're often the same as we've done the previous year, but certainly I think table 4 about sensitivity analysis within our budget modelling for me is really useful. So thank you to our sort of finance colleagues and to Councillor Cox and that, because I don't really recall quite seeing this presented in this way before, that we know that our medium-term financial plan has a lot of moving parts and a lot of assumptions that, like you say, are quite sensitive to small changes. So it's really useful to see the sort of base case, best case, middle case and worst case scenarios in terms of helping us as cabinet members to actually be able to understand where we are financially and where our medium-term financial planning is sitting, and actually where it could potentially improve or where it could worsen, based on changes in our assumptions. So I think that's really helpful to be able to have that, to understand sort of where we sit and what to inform the decisions that we need to make. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Any other, Councillor Herrick?
I'm going to test does the fan work next to the microphone theory, but that's been resolved. I think this is terrifying. It's probably a stretch, but very worrying in terms of the structural finance of the council. Like my colleagues have spoken, it is good to see us being able to invest in some of our estates assets. I think some of those difficulties are well documented likely, but I think also, for the public, it's really important they understand that the easy decisions in terms of what is able to be saved are long gone. We are in a realm where every decision about where we take a saving or increase a fee is difficult, as highlighted by some of the things that we've already spoken about today. And I think it's very important that we're really clear with the public about that. So that's all really.
Thank you, Councillor Herrick. Can't see any other indications, so I'll go back to Councillor Cox to sum up.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, thanks for all your comments. I just want to reiterate my thanks as well to Children's Services for putting in such a good plan on time, which will serve us well, I'm sure, going forward. I also want to pay tribute actually to Matt Filmer for actually highlighting the repair risk and developing programmes to implement how we can go forward and save this. I think the work that's been done so far has been fantastic, and is a tribute to the work he's put in. So therefore, on that basis, I just want to recommend that Cabinet endorse the scenario exercise set out in Appendix 1 that guides the potential level of activity that may now need to be provided to present a legally balanced budget for 27-28, to approve the budget timetable and process set out in Appendix 2, and to approve the financial strategy designed to support the ongoing delivery of a balanced budget in 27-28 and MTFP as set out in Appendix 3. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. So can I see all those in favour of those recommendations, please? Thank you. That's unanimous. So we'll go on to agenda item 8, which is the corporate performance report. I'm going to be proposing this item. Is there anyone to second it, please? Thank you, Councillor Herritt. So this is our quarterly report that tracks the progress against the corporate strategy, or our shared vision for BCP Council and for our communities. Looking at progress with the measures at the end of Q4, we have 45% of measures on target, 19% of measures are being monitored to ensure they don't drift off target, and 35% of measures are on target, 19% are being monitored, and that's down from 26% at Q3. The percentage of measures requiring action has increased slightly from 4% in Q3 to 7% in Q4, although this relates to just 4 measures within the performance framework. We also have a higher percentage of pending measures this time because there's no new data to report. But overall, there's some really encouraging progress in this report in meeting the Council's priorities and delivering on our vision. I'm sure Cabinet members may wish to comment on areas relating to their own portfolios, but I want to kick us off and I'm going to share the achievement within my portfolio area of planning, where the team have worked tremendously hard to clear the remaining backlog of major planning applications in Q3, which has then led to not only just meeting the target for Q4, but exceeding the target and actually hitting 100% of all major applications being determined on time. On top of that, we have also improved non-major applications being determined on time at 92%, which is up from 88% at the last quarter. So I want to thank John and the team for their work in leading the department, and that I really strongly feel we have a planning department that we can all be proud of. So are there any councillors in the room or online who wish to speak? Councillor Canavan, you first, and then Councillor Carr-Brown.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much for the report, which I agree offers some good reading, some positive news. The one point I wanted to raise, if I may, relates to the item on PE 2D2, which is about the enforcement in relation to antisocial behaviour, because I think that red downward arrow indicates that there is still some more work to do in that area. So what I wanted just to point out was, as someone who sits on the Dorset Police and Crime panel, we have tested the Police and Crime Commissioner and indeed the police force about the difference between the statistics, what the statistics tell us about antisocial behaviour and the response to it by the police, and what the public perception is. Because the public perception is considerably more fearful of antisocial behaviour than the statistics would have us believe. So I believe there is a lot more still to be done in that area to offer the public some reassurance that not only the police, but we as an authority are doing everything we can to not just to reassure the public, but actually can be visibly seen to doing something to drive down incidents of antisocial behaviour, because I am absolutely certain I'm not the only councillor in BCP to receive emails about this issue. So I just think that there is still some more to do. There has been some very unfortunate press commentary recently about a particular area in central Bournemouth. And it's just the inference that somehow these areas are now out of control. And I don't believe they are. I believe there are areas where there are incidents of trouble, but that doesn't mean to say that we are not doing something or trying to do something to deal with that sort of behaviour. But I think anything we can do through you, Chair, through the Cabinet can do, anything that we can do in terms of the work within the Dorset Police and Crime Panel needs to be done, because I think it's a constant issue that keeps coming through, and one where members of the public are still fearful of going out to enjoy themselves, and that's something which is simply not acceptable in my view. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Canavan. Councillor Carl-Brown.
Thank you very much, Leader. Yes, I also wanted to highlight something from Appendix 1, PE 2B.1, which is around the PCNs issued for fly tipping, littering, etc. And a couple of things. The first is I was quite surprised to see there was only one issued for fly tipping. I'm genuinely confused by that. But my wider point is, for me, the issue perhaps is not so much the issuing of them, but also the enforcement of that issuance, if that's a word. So I would like some reassurance around what our follow-up is for non-payment of these PCNs. Are we pursuing the process? What is our process? Are we pursuing it even to court if that were necessary? And also with particular reference, I mean, this would also be for parking. That would be for any kind of enforcement action. I have genuine concerns that we don't take our enforcement action to its conclusion. But in terms of fly tipping and waste, what is our relationship with WISE and how is that managed? Because yes, I know that there are, and I've had this highlighted to me, that there are concerns about, as I say, how we conclude our enforcement action, and in fact, whether we do actually conclude that enforcement action. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carl-Brown. I can't see any other indications from councillors not on Cabinet, so I'm going to go to Cabinet members, please. Councillor Wilson.
Thanks. I should probably start, since both the councillors raised really valid and fair points. So firstly, just starting with the antisocial behaviour, I think it's important to say that our teams do a lot of really good work. I think the statistic that we measure here is a difficult one, because it doesn't always tell the whole picture. I think you can look at it both ways, that we haven't been doing enough enforcement, or you can look at it in another way, that actually our earlier interventions and giving sorry, everything okay, Leader? Our earlier interventions mean that we're not giving as many less formal warnings, and that's what we're measuring here. But I completely accept Councillor Canavan's sentiment around us being able to do more, and I think we should always be trying to go further. Obviously, we've got our antisocial behaviour strategy out for consultation at the moment. We've got a new interim head of public protection who's been really, really strong and really, really good at listening to a lot of the feedback that we've been giving and receiving. So I think there is green shoots of recovery, and I would like to talk about the town centre as well. I mean, I think I agree with Councillor Canavan that it isn't a Wild West. I think these things are really overblown, but I do think we need to acknowledge people's concerns about our town centres, but particularly Bournemouth town centre. And I think that both the police and ourselves as a council should be doing more to tackle the issues, and we're going to be doing that through our new strategy. So hopefully that's helpful and answered some of the questions. In terms of the fly tipping, so obviously issuing an FPN for fly tipping is really difficult because you have to be able to identify who's done the fly tipping, and generally fly tipping is done in discreet places, or in the middle of the night, or when nobody's watching. I mean, actually, I've just came home from a conference last night to see some fly tipping outside my house, some nice children's toys. I don't have any children yet, so yeah, and I've no idea how or who's put them there. And obviously, I've taken a photo and I'm going to report it. But it's really difficult to track down who is the person doing it. But when we do, we act appropriately and accordingly, and we make sure that we follow the process through to get the money. We have regular meetings with WISE, our contractors, and we monitor all the FPNs, who's been paying, who's not. So I'd be happy to go in more detail with the councillor outside of the meeting, if that's okay. But I think, generally, we're actually seeing more FPNs being delivered. We're above our target, so I think that's a positive. But one for fly tipping, it's primarily because of how difficult it is.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Moore.
Yes, thank you, Leader. Well, I just wanted to refer to one of the exception reports, and I wish this wasn't the case, but the number of community asset transfers remained static, which is a great pity for the community groups involved. However, having said that, several long-standing applications are nearly ready, including Henry Brown Centre, which is an amazing community centre, and I'm pleased their community asset transfer is proceeding to lease. Also, there's the Broadstone Youth Club, which is progressing through agreed arrangements where Winchelsea School will assume management of the building to support SEND provision alongside continued and expanded community use. And the progress on community asset transfers has unfortunately been affected by various factors, including complex legal and property negotiations. But a review of the community asset transfer policy is underway, with improvements to include clearer guidance to try to reduce delays and support the community organisations. And I know that there is clear demand for this service, and I understand it is expected that several schemes currently in progress will be delivered by the end of this financial year. But I will be keeping a watch on this, as these asset transfers matter a great deal to our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Leader. First of all, I welcome the report as a whole, and I would echo Councillor Canavan's introductory comments that it is a generally positive report. So very pleased to receive it. I'm going to make a slightly esoteric comment on one particular line in the report. And it reflects the fact that we do get quite a bit of flack in social media, even in the press, with complaints about the way in which the council does this, that, or the other. And there is, of course, a complaints process where people can make complaints against the council if they're unhappy with the way we have done things. So if I could refer colleagues to page 109, and it's line A3A.1, which refers to complaints that have been referred to the Ombudsman. Totally independent review of the complaints that are received and need to be referred to him. 31 complaints were referred to the Ombudsman. Of those, 29 were not upheld. Only 2 complaints out of those 31 were actually upheld as being valid complaints, and the council had, in whatever way related to those 2 cases, not quite got things right. I think that's a pretty good record when you consider the size of the council, the number of residents that we serve. To have only 2 complaints upheld by the Ombudsman is pretty good. And I would like to thank officers, especially in the light of the budget pressures that we are facing, for the good work that they are doing that leads to that particular outcome. That's all officers of the council for the work and the way in which they do their jobs. And I'd also like to express particular thanks to the complaints team for the way in which they have handled those complaints. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hannah. Councillor Brown?
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, I just wanted to highlight one area which is always in our reports, but I don't think I've ever referenced before, but I think it is quite important, especially in light of some of the comments that have been made earlier about is it PC3C.1 in the table, which is the increase in the number of individuals entering drug treatment. It's green and it's increasing. And just to highlight the figure there, that as of the end of December 2024, there's a bit of a time lag in reporting these numbers. There's 3,277 people within Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole entering drug treatment. And I think we just need to sit back and reflect on, if you can envision over 3,200 people, that's an awful lot of people across our communities, across Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole, who are receiving drug treatment. And this is within our sort of ring-fence public health grant, working with you, our drug and alcohol treatment and support services. And I've visited them, and actually I've got friends who've got family members who are receiving drug and alcohol treatment through our sort of with you service and public health funding. And it really is life-changing and sometimes life-saving services that are being delivered by our staff in that area. And it sort of goes under the radar a little bit, but I've visited them, and it's astounding work that they're doing. And what really impressed me with the services is that it's not just sort of treatment workers there who are sort of help supporting people, but a lot of them are ex-addicts or people who have actually had difficulties and are now actually providing support and treatment. And I think they are uniquely well placed to be able to help people who are suffering with drug and alcohol addiction. And I just think I think it's just worth noting the real life-changing and life-saving work that's being done within that service area. Ahead, more individuals are receiving that treatment, and I think that then supports all of the work we're doing within crime and disorder, within antisocial behaviour, within our town centres as well. So it's important that we get that work right, and actually we're working with the people who've got those difficulties, which supports so many of our services across the seafront and the town centres, like I say. So yeah, I'm really pleased to sort of just highlight that, really, that one of our success areas that's working and is going to support all communities across BCPs.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Herod?
Thank you, Leader. I'm just going to pick up on a couple of bits from my area that actually we don't have any data for, and provide a bit of an explanation just because of how that fell in Q4, and the football contract in particular has been refreshed as that came to an end. So we'll hopefully see updates on that going forward. I'll further pick up the bus number reduction in journeys, and we experienced, I think, the top 8 wettest winters ever, and that kind of end to the year really drove down people kind of getting out and about in the area, as we saw in our parking revenue as well. But I'll come back to the PCN issue raised by Councillor Carr-Brown. We have a really lengthy report, our annual report on our website. I'll be happy to send her that about kind of collection. That includes, I believe, collection rates and all the things around PCNs. But one of the growing issues in that area is that there are now 18,000 ghost plates out on the network, where people are essentially kind of operating with illegal number plates that allows them to evade enforcement action, and that are not kept up to date by the DVLA. And it was interesting reading this week in light of the work that we've been doing on PCN trials that across kind of those agencies that deliver enforcement and record keeping there in terms of the motor, their fees haven't increased in over a decade in some circumstances as well. So they've been not keeping up with inflation, and that's kind of contributed to some of the. But I will, I suppose, unusually in our space, pay tribute to a Labour MP, Sarah Coombs, who's been working quite hard on trying to resolve some of this ghost plates issue and get it really kind of the enforcement around it strengthened for the DVLA. And I'd invite Councillor Garbrand to support that, and happy to talk with her more.
Thank you, Councillor Herritt. I can't see any other indications, but in the absence of Councillor Hadley, I did just want to briefly mention the exceptional performance report as well, which is for the increase in the number of publicly available electric vehicle charge points, which is up to 395 at the outturn when the target was 340. Obviously, this is across both private and public sectors, but actually improving that infrastructure takes us, of course, closer to creating that sustainable travel network that we really do need. And I'm really pleased, particularly with the installations underway that we're seeing of those EV charging hubs in areas where they will make a real difference. And of course, one that's really exciting is looking at the introduction of electric buses as well on Route 1 for the Route 1 down in Poole. So I just wanted to say a huge thank you to Martin Jolly and the team for all their work in improving that infrastructure. I can't see any other indications from Cabinet. So I think, just to sum up, well done to those teams who are making a real difference in their service areas. I think there are clearly some improvements that we hope to see within the next quarter performance report. But I'm always proud to bring this to Council Cabinet because I think it shows that we're on track in terms of meeting our shared vision for not just the council, but for our wider communities. And yes, I think now I will take this to a vote. All those in favour of the recommendations within the report? Thank you. That's unanimous. Okay, so we will move on to agenda item 9, which is homelessness and rough sleeping strategy for 2026 to 2031. Councillor Wilson is going to be presenting and proposing this item. Is there someone to second this one, please? Thank you very much, Councillor Moore. Councillor Wilson, over to you.
Thank you, Leader. I'm really proud to share this strategy and the progress we've made across Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole. Progress that is not only measurable, but deeply human in its impact. In recent years, our partnership approach has transformed the way we respond to homelessness. We've created more than 275 new support accommodation placements and some incredibly high quality stuff in that. The Ferryman development springs to mind, giving people a safe, stable place to rebuild their lives. But some of our most inspiring progress has been in our prevention work. We've seen more than a 30% increase in our prevention outcomes in the last year alone, keeping significantly more people in their homes and preventing crises before they unfold. We've worked closely with private landlords and have enhanced our relationship with them to catch issues early. Services like Let's Talk Renting, youth and family support, and our enhanced triage have meant that more households than ever at risk have been able to remain in their homes or find suitable alternatives. We've also really deepened our integration with health and social care, ensuring more trauma-informed, person-centred practice. One of our most powerful stories over the past year is the dramatic fall in the use of bed and breakfast accommodation. We reduced the number of families in B&Bs from the point of around 140 families when I took over, to being over a year now without a family staying in B&B longer than 6 weeks. And all the families that are currently in B&B haven't been in there very long, and they won't be because of our improved systems. All have move-on plans in place. Behind, though, each number is a child sleeping in their own room, a place for them to do their own homework, or a family being able to cook in a real kitchen, and parents no longer living with the anxiety of those difficult conditions. This is what partnership achieves, and this strategy has definitely been partnership built. That is not to say we're not aware that there is more to do. We know there are still families in hostels who are struggling, and that's why the strategy is so important. Our work will never stop until everyone has a safe place they can call home. I believe that this strategy is bursting at the seams with hope and optimism. It has the foundations of the last strategy, but goes further. More than 500 people helped shape this new strategy, and I would just like to take a moment to thank Fraser, Rachel, and Paul for all of their hard work on this. I don't personally think I've known a more thorough consultation process. The amount of opportunities and events to participate has been unbelievable and so well attended by professionals, partners, landlords, young people, and most importantly, those with lived experience. Their voice have guided us towards what matters most. Even earlier intervention, stronger integration with health and wellbeing services, compassionate, consistent support, and very, very clear communication every step of the way. Our strategy for 2026 to 2031, sorry, that's a mouthful, sets a clear and hopeful direction that homelessness in BCP becomes rare, brief, and unrepeated. Rare because we intervene early, brief because when somebody needs help, they get it quickly and with compassion, unrepeated because we prioritise long-term stability, strong tenancy support, and real opportunities to thrive. We're also committed to changing the narrative around homelessness, challenging stigma, and building empathy. And we achieve this by keeping lived experience at the heart of everything we do. When I first got the housing role in 2019, one of the first things I did was head over to Finland to meet the Y Foundation CEO, one of the architects behind the country's progress in reducing homelessness. And he said to me, and it will always stick with me, that nobody is a lost cause, that all you need is patience and persistence. And as a partnership, I believe we are patient. We know that success doesn't come overnight, but that it will come. And we are persistent because we don't give up on those who are struggling. I believe that homelessness isn't inevitable, that prevention works, and that when we act together, we can transform lives. And the results, for example, a significant reduction in B&B use and a hefty rise in prevention success, show that we are already changing lives. But we know we can go further and that we must go further. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Yeah, a really strong presentation of that, and I agree with your sentiment there. And yeah, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to open this up to councillors who are not on Cabinet. I can't see any indications. So over to Cabinet, please. Councillor Brown?
Yeah, I was just going to comment briefly, and I applaud Councillor Wilson for his passion in this area and for what's been delivered and what will be delivered and the value of this strategy over the coming years. And I always like to bring it back to sort of individuals as opposed to just sort of corporate-wide strategies. And I met a couple of people just very recently in my ward who I've known for a number of years and always had quite chaotic lives and difficult sleeping patterns. And I knew had been living for some years in a caravan on Camford Heath. And actually, when I spoke to them just very recently, when I bumped into them, they're both now in, been BCP have supported them. They're in a BCHA provision, new build flats in my ward, got decent homes. You know, it's so transformational for people's lives to be able to have somewhere secure and safe and a decent place to live. So, you know, I've seen the difference it makes for those individuals in my ward. And, you know, to be able to replicate that across our area for more and more people is so important. So, yeah, I fully support it. So.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Moore.
Yes, thank you, Leader. Well, I'd just like to make a few comments about the new homelessness and rough sleeping strategy, because it's being developed, owned and delivered through a shared partnership model. And that's been deliberately chosen in the belief that homelessness is a system-wide issue which cannot be addressed by any single organisation working alone. But this council's homelessness partnership actually brings together over 45 statutory, voluntary, community, faith and private sector organisations. From BCP Council, Dorset Police, NHS Dorset, housing providers and a wide range of charities like St Mungo's, Shelter, Faithworks, to landlord reps and street vet, to name but a few. Although this council has the legal responsibility to publish this strategy, success very much depends on collective commitment and coordinated delivery. And this new strategy includes emphasis on prevention and reflects rising local demand, system pressures, the view of partners, and most importantly, as Kieran mentioned earlier, people with lived experience. I also want to mention that homelessness doesn't just mean someone sleeping on the streets. Homelessness can look very different for different people. Some stay outside because they've nowhere else to go. Others stay in emergency rooms and hostels for a short time while they wait for somewhere more stable. Some stay with friends or family, even when overcrowded, because they've run out of options. For some, home becomes unsafe due to violence or other serious dangers, meaning they have no choice but to leave. Homelessness today means not having a safe and secure place to call home, and it can happen to anyone unlucky enough to get the wrong set of adverse circumstances. I think there's a wealth of both professional and lived experiences reflected in this strategy, and I'm very happy to second this paper and support the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Councillor Burton.
Yes, thank you, Leader. And I'd also like to just pick up a couple of things that Councillor Wilson said, and also to thank him and his team for the work. I'm particularly thinking that affects children. Because you did mention it, and you know, two areas I'd like to mention. I mean, first off, if you are a child who is being made homeless because your parent or carer is being made homeless, or even your accommodation is vulnerable and you could become homeless, it's very difficult for a child in that situation to do as well as they could in their education. They don't have a sort of safe place to work at home. They've got that on their mind. It's going to affect them, and it's triply important, of course, if they have special education needs. You know, a child who's autistic or has got ADHD actually needs a constant safe space to live, and therefore the work that's been done does have a huge knock-on effect to those children in their lives. I'd also like to mention that the work that's been done from housing in the corporate parenting arena. Over the last few years, you're probably aware that your team, your director, have attended most of the corporate parenting board meetings, and I've heard the experience and stories of children who are our children, because you know we are their corporate parents, and the difference that it's made. You know, we can always get it better, but there is so much improvement happened, and one thing I do know is that our children who are in care or care experience are now on our minds in the housing area, which I'm very grateful for.
Thank you, Councillor Burton. I can't see any other indications, but I did just want to briefly mention that this went to Environment and Place Overview and Scrutiny all the way back in February, I think it was. Yeah, so quite a while ago. But they did actually have two recommendations which came out of that meeting. So one was, and Councillor Rigby has actually already reported these to Cabinet. One was that the committee endorsed the homeless and rough sleeping strategy 2026 to 2031 and consider any further improvements ahead of consideration at Cabinet in May 2026. And the second one was that they support the co-production of the delivery plan with people who have lived experience and through a working group of homelessness delivery board members. So I just want to ask Councillor Wilson in his summing up to just make a comment on those, please. That would be great. Councillor Wilson, over to you.
Thank you. Firstly, thank you to Cabinet colleagues for the kind words, and also the endorsement of this strategy. I think it's a really important piece of work that covers a whole wide range of stuff, and I think it's really important to just acknowledge the effort that's gone in from officers and the team, not just into the strategy, but on a day-to-day basis. The work they do is just absolutely phenomenal, and we've seen that in the results. And if we can keep that trend going, you know, there's no reason to say why we can't end homelessness within our conurbation. I think as well it's important to mention Councillor McCormack, our lead member for homelessness, who's you know, really inputted into this, attended a lot of the events that were around this, and has been a great ambassador for the work that's been done over the course of his tenure as lead member. yeah, I think that we're just very lucky here, very fortunate to have the team and the officers that we do. You know, we're always trying new and innovative things. Last week, I was in a meeting with um, consultants from Bloomberg who are doing pro bono work with us on behalf of Homewards, the Royal Foundation charity. And it's this hit team of like the most academic, clever, loveliest people, all the way from New York City, coming to help us end homelessness in Bournemouth. You know, and I think we're so lucky to be in the position we are. We've got just a wealth of passion, knowledge, and that's one of the things I found very humbling is that afterwards when I was speaking to these three lovely people from New York, they were saying how we were the best they'd worked with, that our staff were so knowledgeable, so good at their jobs, and they were very impressed by us. So yeah, I think that's the kind of level we're working at in this area. In terms of the recommendations, more than happy to support them. I'm not sure, has any further recommendations from Environment and Place come in relation to, okay. So yeah, I'm more than happy to support them. I'm more than happy to put the strategy forward.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wilson. So can I see support from Cabinet members for those recommendations, please? Thank you, that's unanimous. So item number 10 is the housing strategy review. Councillor Wilson will be proposing this one. Is there someone to second, please?
Second, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Moore. Councillor Wilson, over to you.
Thank you, Leader. Again, very pleased to bring this annual update on the housing strategy 21 to 27. At its heart, as the previous strategy, the report is about people and about something very important, making sure residents have access to safe, secure and decent homes. And I think it shows that even in a very challenging context, we've made real progress. Over the past year, work has continued across all 5 priorities within the strategy. That includes increasing housing supply, strengthening homelessness prevention, increasing housing options and choice, supporting neighbourhoods, and raising standards of safety and sustainability. Put simply, this is about keeping the momentum and staying focused on what matters, and continuing to respond to the pressures that many residents are facing. There's some very genuinely impressive achievements in the report. I'm not going to repeat. Well, maybe I should, but I'm not going to repeat some of the stuff around homelessness because obviously I'm just bragging at that point. But we have. I want to really mention our strong focus on quality and safety of housing services. Including achieving a C1, the highest compliance and governance rating from the regulator of social housing. Those are important results because they reflect a great deal of effort across the service, and they again are a testament to the team we have at BCP Homes. At the same time, I think it's really important to be honest about the pressures that we're facing. Demand for housing remains high. Affordability continues to be a real issue for many residents. Temporary accommodation is still under strain, and wider market conditions are affecting the pace of affordable housing delivery. We're also working in a changing regulatory environment, which brings higher expectations around assurance, compliance, and qualities. And I think it's really important to say that we absolutely welcome that, but that comes at a cost. So while this is a positive picture in many respects, it's one that calls for realism, focused, and continued effort. Looking ahead, our priority is to build on the progress we've made in recent years, continuing to grow our affordable housing pipeline, deepening our prevention and early intervention work, widening housing options for residents, and keeping safety and quality at the heart of everything we deliver. It also means using what we've learned to shape the next housing strategy so that it reflects both the evidence on a day-to-day realities facing communities across Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole. So overall, I hope this gives Cabinet some assurance that solid progress is being made, while also being clear about the challenges that remain. And yeah, happy to present it to Cabinet.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. I'm going to invite councillors who are not on Cabinet to come and speak. So Councillor Canavan, please come up.
it probably won't surprise Councillor Wilson to know that I'm here talking about housing, but it's a question really. So in the appendix, it refers to the private sector housing stock condition survey, and in the commentary, it says that that has been completed. Can I just gently ask when we might see it, because I haven't seen it yet. Now, I take it from the report that somebody's doing some kind of final review of it and considering the next steps. That's good. It would be great to be involved in what those next steps might be. So it's a request that could happen. So certainly Councillor Wilson will know, and I know for certain the director knows, that my ward of Boscombe West has 60% of all residents that live in private rented sector accommodation. And to be honest, some of it is not great. So I was absolutely thrilled when council embarked on this conditions survey, because it will impact quite significantly on some of the residents in my ward, and hopefully will ease the amount of casework I get from residents who are living in conditions which are completely unsatisfactory and unacceptable in many instances. So it's a request of when we might be able to have a look at that conditions report, and also have some discussion about what those next steps might be. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Canavan. So Councillor Wilson will address those in his summing up, but I'm going to open this up to Cabinet members first, if anyone wishes to speak on this item. Councillor Moore?
Yes, thank you, Leader. Since the previous annual update, there have been many national policy changes and reforms. And obviously, given the government's current situation, I suspect this might continue for some time. However, despite this background of lots of change, progress has been made in, as we heard earlier, delivering affordable housing and reducing reliance on emergency accommodation. There are apparently around 9,000 homes with planning consent which have not yet been built, but work is taking place with partners to try to bring these sites forward. And there's also been the 16% reduction in rough sleeping and a sharper decline in long-term rough sleeping by 36%. Obviously, this is both good news. There's also been the 100% improvement in settled housing outcomes for care experienced young people, which Councillor Burton referred to earlier. That's 45 young people have been helped into permanent homes, and that is great news. And of course, we did achieve the highest C1 governance rating, and I'm not going to apologise for mentioning this again. So I'm very happy to second this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Any other councillors wishing to speak on this item? Councillor Burton.
Although Councillor Moore did really take the line that's perfectly all right, because because people noticing that is actually, my work is done when other people do that. Just to emphasise that, just make sure people realize care experienced young people is a term that our young people use rather than care leavers. But I speak to quite a few care experienced young people at Corporate Parenting Board and other places, and where they go to when they leave care, it is always a worry. The child that lives has been brought up in your home, when they get to the age of 18, you don't just say, okay, off you go into the wide world. We do as parents so many things to make sure, and of course the door's always open, isn't it? And often, I know some of us know that because the door has been used. But when a child is in care, is care experienced, of course, when they get to a certain age, they're very much on their own, except, they're still we're still their corporate parents. The fact of the 45 young people going to permanent homes, it would be such a relief for them. It's such a worry of them. It allows them to focus on other things in their lives, because at that age, of course, they're thinking about their careers, they're thinking about their education, they're thinking about falling in love and all that sort of stuff that all young people do. And to know that those 45 people have now got, young people have got a house that they can call home, is so important.
Thank you, Councillor Burton. Councillor Brown?
Yeah, just very briefly. I think there's a lot of good work going on here, and just in terms of the comment about a pipeline of new affordable housing, I see it regularly in my ward. I've just recently had occasion to tour 2 of the new housing developments. As colleagues will know, there's over 1,600 new homes being built across 3 sites in our ward, all delivering 40% affordable homes. So that's around 650 new affordable homes. And I must admit, it's quite breathtaking actually to tour those new developments and see them under construction, and just see streets and streets and streets of new affordable homes, apartments, terraced housing of all different tenures. And speaking to somebody I know who actually was a care experienced young person who's just moved into one of those, I think it's, to actually go, I think people will probably see it maybe on some streets across BCP where there's small developments of council housing and affordable housing, but to see it almost wholesale streets of these new homes being delivered is quite breathtaking, really. So it really is making a difference, and I see it every day in my ward. So.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brown. Can't see any of indications, so we'll go back to Councillor Wilson to sum up, please.
Thank you, Leader. And thank you. I'll firstly address Councillor Canavan's question. Thank you for that. That's really, really helpful. Firstly, I haven't seen the stock condition survey results yet. I've had a bit of a summary and bit of a briefing from Kelly, our director. We had a 3-hour catch up just before she left to go on holiday, a well-deserved holiday. And yeah, I don't know how she put up with me for 3 hours, but out of that, we set our key priorities as a whole portfolio, so housing and public protection. We've chosen 5 priorities, and within that, private rented sector improvement programme is one of those, along with a temporary accommodation review, BCP Homes 5-year strategy, ASB improvement and strategy, which again Councillor Canavan will probably be happy to hear, and increased prevention and promotion of regulatory and compliance activity. So that's hot off the press. That's all. That's you're the first ones to hear about that. But I think it's important to kind of emphasise that we absolutely appreciate the point that Councillor Canavan's making in terms of the private rented sector, and it's something that over the course of the next year we're really going to look to do in terms of targeted hotspotting and really being proactive in that space. We haven't got an agreed action plan of that, and absolutely happy to include and involve and let update Councillor Canavan and any other councillor who has a passion for this. But yeah, just wanted to kind of highlight that. To the wider housing strategy, just again, thank you to Cabinet colleagues for their kind words and I think their support of the update. I think actually it's also important to mention Kelly, our Director of Housing, because she actually won an award on Monday night. She is the Woman of the Year, Inside Housing's Woman of the Year for the wider sector. And yeah, it's a really prestigious award and really well deserved. I think just very, very proud of the team and the officers I have. Very lucky. They're always making me look much better than I am, and I'm very grateful for that. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wilson, and I would also just extend a huge congratulations to Kelly too for her fantastic achievement and that national recognition for the work that she has put in. Okay, so we will take this to a vote. Our recommendation is to note the progress, achievements and challenges set out by this report. Can I see all those in favour of accepting that recommendation? Thank you. That is unanimous. Right, so we will now move on to agenda item 11, which is urgent decisions taken by the Chief Executive in accordance with the Constitution. Chief Executive, do you have anything to report?
No, I have no urgent decisions to report.
Thank you. We'll now move on to agenda item 12, which is the Cabinet Forward Plan. It has now been published on the Council's website and, of course, as part of this agenda. So please do take a look to see what is coming up over the next few months of our Cabinet agenda. So all that's left for me to do is to close the meeting. We have now concluded the business for today, and I'll formally close it. Thank you.